Okay, I hope you guys were able to give that second one a try. Here's how we would do it. So we would start by looking at the constant, and we want to see which numbers multiply to a positive 9. One thing that's easy to forget is that two negatives also multiply to a positive, so we have two options in every scenario. So it's -1 and -9, or 1 and 9. Both of those multiply to 9. 3, 3, or -3 and -3. So then the second question we have to ask is which of those would then also add to -6? Well, this one adds to -10. This adds to 10. This adds to 6. This one adds to -6. So then what we have is x minus 3 times x minus 3 equals 0. And you can set that each of them equal to 0, but I'm just going to do it once because I'm lazy and they're obviously the same thing. So x equals 3 is our solution, or our 0 for that one. Okay, these next two you might notice look a little bit more intimidating, and they kind of are. So there's a method that I'll show you right now that's also factoring, but I would say that this is not going to be the best option. I would probably use the quadratic formula when you see something out front here where the coefficient is not 1. I would probably go use the quadratic formula, which you will learn in a couple sections, but for now you can absolutely use this. So what you're going to do is we're going to look for multiples again, but this time you're going to take 5 times 24. So you're going to take this guy and this guy, and you get 120. Then you're going to look at 34 from the middle term. So again, what we're doing is we're looking for two numbers that multiply to 120 and then add to 34. In this case, there's a ton of numbers that multiply to 120, but if we listed a couple, you might start to notice what will happen. So if we do 10 and 12, that adds to 22, which isn't quite big enough. You can do 20 and 60, which is too big. 2 and 60, which is too big. But then you'd eventually get to 30 times 4. So 30 and 4 are going to be the two numbers that multiply to 120 and add to 34. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go 5x squared plus, now instead of writing 34x, we're going to write it in two separate chunks. We're going to do 30x and 4x. Just to clarify, 30 plus 4 is 34. So this looks a lot different, but it still has the exact same value. Now we have to do something called factor by grouping. Basically just look at the first two chunks, and then the second two chunks, and pull out what we can that's in common. So in the first two terms, 5x squared and 30x, both of those are divisible by 5 and by an x. So you can take out a 5 from both this and this, and you can take an x from this and this. The first term, which I'll highlight, this piece is going to become just x. The second piece is going to become just 6. So if you take a second and you redistribute, you'll notice that you get back to that original 5x squared plus 30x. We have to do the same thing in the second set of parentheses. So if you look at this term and this term, both of those are divisible by 4. So I'm going to do a positive 4 out front. That's going to turn into x plus 6. Again, if you take a second and you distribute, you're going to end up back here where you started. Okay, now sidebar with me, you guys. Ignore this problem for just a second. Think back to if you have something like this. If you distribute this, let me change that. If you distribute this, what you're going to end up with is 3 times 2 and 3 times m, correct? So essentially what we have is right here, we are looking at this step. And what we want to do is figure out this piece here. So we're kind of working backwards. So what we're going to do is we're going to look and see, okay, this is the same. We're just going to write that one time. That thing got distributed. Just like here, you would write the 3 a single time. And then out front, you would take these 2 extra pieces, 5x plus 4. This is still equal to 0. I'm sorry I dropped that off. So this is obviously the hard part. And then what you're going to do is set that equal to 0. Then you solve, minus 4 on both sides. You get 5x equals negative 4. Divide by 5, divide by 5. X equals negative 4 over 5. This one you minus 6 on both sides, and you get x equals negative 6. I would love it if you guys could rewind if you need to watch that again. Slow it down if you need to, because you can change the speed on YouTube. And then try to give this guy a shot right here. Pause the video and see what you can come up with. Okay, so here's what we would do in this one. We would take 15 times 1, which is 15. And then we would look at this negative 8. So we're looking for numbers that multiply to 15 and add to the middle negative 8. So this one's a little bit nicer because it's not quite as huge as 120. So if you think about 15, for example, we have 1 and 15, negative 1 and negative 15. 3 and 5, negative 3 and negative 5. Which of those adds to negative 8? It would be this guy here. So again, what we're going to do is, we're going to go 15x squared. And then instead of writing minus 8x, we're going to write minus 3x minus 5x plus 1. Again, the middle two, sorry, I'll put this in black because that's from the original. These two are replacing the minus 8x. It's the same value, but it just looks different. So now what we're going to do is factor by grouping, meaning look at the first 2 parts, look at the second 2 parts, and you want to pull stuff out so that they end looking the same. So what can you take out of both 15x and x squared and minus 3x? Both of those are divisible by 3. And you can take an x from both of them. So 15 divided by 3 is 5. X squared divided by x is x. Negative 3x divided by 3x is negative 1. In the second parentheses, here's the deal. There's not a lot that those share in common, but we want the ending parentheses to look this way. It's almost the same, except for that negative. So we're going to pull out a negative 1. Negative 5x divided by negative 1 is 5x. 1 divided by negative 1 is negative 1. Now you have this guy and this guy, they match, so we just need to write it one time. Oopsie. And then we're going to write this other stuff from the outside in a separate parenthesis, 3x minus 1. Again, the whole way down, these equal 0, equals 0, equals 0. Set this first one equal to 0 and solve. Divide by 3, divide by 3. X equals 1/3, so that's one of our solutions. And then here we set this guy equal to 0 as well. Add 1, divide by 5, divide by 5, and then we get x equals 1/5. So you can see these ones that are a little bit trickier always end with kind of ugly solutions. Not all of the solutions are ugly, but they're usually a little bit trickier because of that weird coefficient. So again, this is a little bit difficult. I would take a minute to highlight any questions that you have before the Google Meet and bring those to the table so that it can get clarified for you, but also for your classmates.